Joining me now, well, we have a great lineup here. Congressman Kevin Brady, the ranking member of the House Ways and Means Committee, and Steve Moore, the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, FreedomWorks senior economist. Gentlemen, thank you ever so much for this. I appreciate it. Kevin Brady, you heard my plea to my friend Joe Manchin, who was so good last year. He issued a pretty good press release, and he also gave an interview to our Hillary Vaughn that sounded better. But I just can't imagine, Chuck Schumer, Democrats, another $1 trillion of spending, $1 trillion or more of tax hikes, going after small business, corporations, the whole 9 yards. You have written again and again on these Ways and Means bulletins that are so helpful to all of us. Tell me what you know. Tell me what you hear. Tell me, is Joe Manchin going to break my heart?
Yeah, so I hope not, but I'm worried. And I agree with every word that you said. But, it's no coincidence that it is a year ago this week that President Biden's reckless stimulus checks started flooding the economy. And we continue to see the fruits of that, which is we've got raging inflation. It's getting worse. It's massive tax or pay cuts for American families. Today, we held a hearing on the housing, and Larry, this is a shocking number, but since President Biden took office, the median, new home in America has risen $100,000 in a year and a half, $100,000, and that inflation is raging at about 4 times the average before the president took office. So it seems unbelievable that Senate Democrats and President Biden would try to make that inflation worse with $1 trillion of new taxes, many of them which will end up in higher prices because businesses can't afford to swallow that themselves. It's going to rob investment money that's needed to fix these supply chain problems with pro-growth policies. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to hammer small businesses and family-owned farms in a big way. And I can't think of a worse time to be doing this, especially as America is facing a looming recession.
There's a lot we don't know, about this Manchin-Schumer smooching cheek to cheek. There's a lot of stuff we don't quite know yet. But from what we do know, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin Brady, the Joint Tax Committee priced out, they priced out something, and it basically shows if you start taxing pass-throughs and you raise the minimum tax for corporations and some other things, pretty much every single person is going to pay higher taxes above $400,000 or below $400,000. It's an across-the-board tax hike. Now, you know this stuff more than I do, but from what I gathered, the joint taxes priced it out, and it's pretty bad.
Yeah, so I think it is bad all around, whether you're that worker at the company who is getting taxed because of your company's taxes. As you know, corporations don't pay these, they collect them, and oftentimes it's the workers who pay that tax for them. Secondly, you're going to see it in higher prices, which is a tax on all Americans as well, and especially for that family-owned business, say the plumber, the contractor, the service people that we need to build our houses and man the production lines and do all this. You're going to see almost 11% tax hike on those frontline Main Street businesses at exactly the worst time. And so, again, economically, I can't think of a dumber and more punishing move than this slim down, build back better. And it's going to hurt Senator Manchin's constituents the worst. He had it right. He's always had it right on spending fuels inflation. And these spending programs aren't needed. And I hope he sticks to those guns.
Steve Moore, people forget, look, the Fed's going to do what the Fed needs to do to pull cash out of the economy and stop the monetary inflation. But, Steve, what nobody wants to talk about, except Kevin Brady, I might add, who is a leading apostle, but nobody wants to talk about supply-side solutions. I think we're in the front end of a recession. I don't really think we can avoid one. But couldn't we mitigate recessions if we applied some supply-side policy tools to this story?
Well, absolutely. And by the way, if there's any silver lining to this horrid inflation rate number that came out today, Larry, it is that hopefully this should kill any talk of new Build Back Better. We need to be doing exactly the opposite of what Chuck Schumer wants to do. We need to be cutting taxes in a very strategic way. We've got to be, you're right, I'm a little disappointed with you, Larry. You said it was spending freeze. I want a spending cut. I want to see a reduction in that spending, but a freeze would certainly be improvement. But, you know, by the way, it's a privilege to be on with Kevin Brady. He is one of my heroes. And as you know, Larry, we would not have had the Trump tax cut if it had not been for Kevin Brady.
Yes.
And the reason I mention that is if you look at the plan that's reportedly being outlined by Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin, it would reverse a lot of those important tax rate reductions we had for small businesses, for investors, that led to the big boom that we had under Trump. So I'm very nervous about that because the Build Back Better bill, and I love that we call it a slimmed down version, even though it's $500 billion to $1 trillion. Yeah. This would make the inflation problem worse. And if there were any question about America going into a recession, you put those higher taxes on those small businesses and on investment income right now, and we will have a recession.
Kevin, I just want to mention this, Kevin Brady. I don't really know how to read this, but our Hillary Vaughn, great reporter for Fox Business, she interviewed Manchin today, kind of on the fly, but Manchin says, I'll just read you this, Kevin, let you react to it, because it is breaking news. Manchin, there shouldn't be any tax increases whatsoever that would be inflammatory towards closing loopholes, things of that sort, looking at everything that we can to make sense. The one thing we all agree on is that basically Medicare should be allowed to negotiate. Okay, he's for Medicare negotiating drug prices. We're not. We're never going to change that. But he did say that I think the loophole he's talking about with respect to pass-through, Kevin, is a loophole that allows some people to avoid paying FICA taxes at all. I'm not sure he is talking about the 3.8% net investment tax from Obamacare. There would be a big difference there. The investment tax is very harmful to growth and incentives. Closing that FICA loophole, I don't know that I'd have any trouble with doing that. Do you have any idea what he's referring to or what this could mean?
Yeah, I do. But to begin with, every taxpayer should be thanking you, Steve, and you, Larry, for your role in crafting the Trump tax cuts and reforms. That was the basis, along with the House, of where we wanted to go, and we succeeded. So thank you very much. And secondly, yeah, he is referring to net investment tax. For some reason, someone has tried to peddle this as a loophole that it wasn't expanded to small businesses and what you and I call pass-through businesses. But in fact, in that law, Obamacare, it specifically exempted them because of the damage it would do economically to them. So this is no loophole. This is a dramatic expansion of that tax. And while it only, the number 3.8 doesn't seem large, it translates to more than 11% tax hikes on small businesses, Main Street businesses who are actively engaged in their operation and in their firms, exactly the people you don't want to punish at this crucial time. So it is not a loophole. It's being portrayed that way. It is flat out a major expansion for family-owned businesses, small businesses, and farms.
Well, if it is referring to the
Larry,
investment...
Could I just make one point about what...
I just want to say to Kevin, if that is what the Senator Manchin is talking about, I'm completely opposed to it. All right, we do not need layering on an investment tax on these pass-through. Look, I don't know, 90% of American output comes from small business, for heaven's sakes. Over half of the jobs come from small business. We're in the front end of a recession, or worse. Why would we want to raise that? That just strikes me as pure folly. I mean, that's just Democratic folly. So if that's where that's going, I'm with you on that. I thought there was something else going on. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, buddy.
I was going to make a point relevant to that. So there was a letter, I'm sure you've seen it, Kevin Brady, and you've probably seen it too, Larry, signed by hundreds and hundreds of small business organizations. And I've been in this town for 40 years. I've never seen so many small business groups come together and say, we're adamantly opposed to this. It will do significant damage to the small business sector at a time, Larry, if you saw the NFIB survey that came out earlier this week, I think it came out 2 days ago, small business confidence has really fallen. Small businesses are really struggling right now. I mean, this would be a real, a millstone around the neck of small businesses as they try to stay profitable in these tough times.
You know, Stephen, we had Linda McMahon on the other night, ran the Small Business Administration. She herself ran a successful business. I mean, one reason why these goofy Bidens don't understand how the world works, they don't have anybody in the cabinet or the senior ranks who've ever been in business. You know, they have ideological think tanks and crazy professors and socialists and God knows what they got in there. They don't have any people in business. Say what you will about Team Trump. A lot of us were in business or Wall Street or both or making, movies and stuff like that. I mean, we kind of knew what a profit margin was. We knew what a profit and loss statement was. This crowd doesn't know what a profit and loss statement is.
Yeah, we had a piece in the Wall Street Journal today on this, and it's just so shocking. We did an analysis of the top 65 people in the Biden administration who deal with the economy and business and commerce issues, and the median, that is, most of them have zero business experience. They've never worked for a business. They're either, as you said, in academia, they're lawyers, they're people who've been in government their whole life, a lot of community activists. And so it's no surprise that they're not able to deal with this crisis at hand because none of them really know how to deal with any kind of, how to meet a payroll, how to deal with the logistics of a struggling economy, how small businesses work. They don't have any conception of that whatsoever.
Kevin Brady, give you the last word, last 30 seconds or so. I see my friend Josh Gottheimer making noises about opposing a reconciliation bill. Now, I know we've seen this movie before, but I just want to ask you, is there any chance there would be a rebellion in the House among the Democrats?
How many times is Lucy going to hold this football for us and we get fooled by it? No. The answer is they're desperate. They'll take it, anything they can get. And I really do, by the way, appreciate Steve's report on the inexperience. The White House doesn't understand this economy, doesn't understand anything but the government and the economy, and it shows.
You know, my favorite line, first of all, Josh Gottheimer is a friend, but I know we've seen
He's a good man.
Lucy hold the football. I like that very much. Every time I saw some Biden people out flacking away against this inflation report, what we need is more investment. You know what that means, Kevin Brady. What is more, when the left says more investment, what does that mean?
You know, it is more spending and regulation, but to you and me and Steve, investment from the private sector in the supply chain, in their equipment, in the technology and workers, that's the supply and demand. And I don't know why the White House doesn't get that.
I do, but the subject for another segment. Actually, you do too.
Sir.
Actually, Steve does too. Congressman Kevin Brady, you're fabulous. Thank you. Steve Moore, my brother. Thank you so much.